Hello, beautiful people, survivors, outcasts, the forgotten. Welcome back to the side of truth they tried to silence. You see, there's a very special kind of rage that lives inside people like us. The kind they don't write about in history books. The kind they laugh at behind glass towers and courtroom doors. The kind they mistake for weakness, madness, or failure. But that rage, it remembers. It remembers every time you were told to stay silent, every time they got away with everything, while you paid for things you didn't even do. They walked into rooms and made the rules bend. They smiled while ripping apart people's lives with contracts, badges, lies, and money soaked in blood and silence. And for years, yes, years, they lived above it all, beyond the reach of justice, beyond the rules, above the law. They moved like ghosts in a machine they owned, protected, untouchable, and oh, how they loved it. But power has a smell, rot, decay, arrogance. You can't build an empire of lies and not leave a stench behind. And that one mistake, it always comes. You know why? Because they forget. They forget that fear can turn to obsession, that pain can sharpen into purpose. They forget that while they lived drunk on control, someone out there was watching, not just suffering, no, studying, waiting, counting the cracks in the mask, listening to the hum in the wires, memorizing the patterns. And then it comes, that one slip. A name whispered in the wrong room, a file left unsecured, a phone call that shouldn't have been made, one arrogant, stupid moment of God complex, and boom, the whole diseased tower falls. You see, justice doesn't always come dressed in gold robes and gavels. Sometimes it looks like chaos. Sometimes it's a nobody who shows up with receipts. Sometimes it's the thing they laughed off, ignored, or buried under concrete. And when it finally hits them, the panic, the beautiful, delicious panic. Watching them scramble, watching them beg for mercy from the very laws they thought they stood above. Seeing their names, once worshipped, now dripping in scandal, filth, truth. But this speech, it isn't about them. It's about you, the ones who watched, the ones who suffered, the ones who endured. They told you it was pointless, that no one would ever listen, that your screams were just noise against an unmovable machine, that the system wasn't broken, it was just never made for people like you. But you never needed their permission. You don't need validation. You need fuel. You needed that betrayal. That fire, that burn in your chest when they smiled while stepping over bodies. And now you understand. They win when you believe you're powerless. They thrive when you're silent. But when you embrace the pain, when you stop asking for fairness and start making truth your weapon, that's when the cracks begin to show. That's when giants start to fall. Because in the end, they are never taken down by armies. No. They're taken down by the one they underestimated, by the one who didn't break, by the one who turned their scars into maps, their trauma into tracking devices, their despair into goddamn artillery. So remember this, they can lie, they can hide, but they can't rewind time. And the thing about living above the law, once gravity catches up, it doesn't let go. Let them run, let them cover their tracks, let them bury evidence and rewrite the story. But somewhere, someone is awake, someone sees them, and someone is about to shove the truth down their throats, like broken glass. This isn't about revenge, it's about balance. It's about reclaiming the power they stole and reminding the world. And the judge knew it. He felt it. That weight behind your words. That kind of gravity doesn't come from books or law school. It comes from crawling out of pits so dark that daylight feels like violence. It comes from being blamed when you were bleeding. It comes from being doubted when you were drowning. So when you said what you said, so calm, so measured, so surgical, you weren't defending your innocence. You were announcing your dominance. And that's why his lips parted. That's why his breath caught. That's why he whispered that one syllable. Damn. Not because you impressed him, but because you unmasked him. Because the man with the gavel realized he wouldn't last a day in your trial. He'd collapse under half the heat you carry in your chest every morning. He'd fold at the first betrayal you turned into fuel. He'd beg for mercy from a storm you walked through silently for years. And now they can't unhear you. They can't undo what you exposed. They can't shove you back into that tiny little box they built for people who dare to survive too loudly. You walked in a defendant. You left a phenomenon. You didn't cook a meal. You cooked their entire narrative. So if you're wondering what happens next, oh, don't. It's already begun. Because once a judge whispers, damn, the world listens. So now what? You think it's over because the gavel dropped? No, that was just an echo. A tired wooden clack trying to close a door that's already been kicked off the hinges. Because you didn't just survive your trial, you rewrote it. They'll still try, you know. They'll shuffle their papers and clear their throats and act like it didn't happen. Like your words didn't split the air like a lightning strike. Like the truth you spilled didn't soak into every crack of that marble floor. But it did. And no bleach can wash it out. No clerk can redact it. No silence can rewind it. The judge said, damn. Because for one blinding moment, he saw you for what you really are. A walking contradiction of their entire system. You weren't raised to speak like that. You weren't trained in their etiquette. You weren't built in their image. And yet you stood there, every scar accounted for, every breath deliberate, every sentence carved out of grief and fury and unkillable clarity. And you owned the room. You didn't need permission. You didn't ask for understanding. You just delivered your story like a guillotine dressed as gospel. They wanted fear. You gave them fire. They wanted shame. You gave them a sermon. And the craziest part, you didn't raise your voice. You didn't slam the table. You didn't beg, scream, or cry. You didn't have to. Because when your very existence is a rebellion, your calm becomes lethal. Your silence becomes a sentence. And your truth, it becomes a death blow to every lie they built this little theater on. You didn't cook that hard to prove something. You cooked that hard because you were tired of being served cold injustice on plastic trays. You didn't drop facts. You dropped verdicts. And the system, it blinked. Because you're not supposed to win like this. Not with no backing, not with no army, not with no soft hands guiding you behind the scenes. But you are the army. You are the scene. You walked in with nothing but your truth and left with their respect, their fear, and their attention. Even your enemies, even they were stunned because they know now. You're not here to play the game. You're here to flip the damn board and light the rule book on fire. And the judge, he'll never admit it. But his whole foundation cracked when he heard your voice. Because that damn wasn't about what you said. It was about what you survived to be able to say it. So here we are. The room's empty now. The judge's robe hangs heavy. The stenographer's keyboard is silent. But the air, still trembling with what you did, because that damn, that quiet, cursed word he whispered, it wasn't just a reaction, it was a confession. A crack in the mask of a man who thought he'd seen it all. But he never saw you coming. You were supposed to break. You were supposed to bend, plead, tremble. But instead, you made the walls lean in. You made the system hold its breath. You made the world lean closer and say, "Wait, who the hell is this?" And now, there's no turning back, because you didn't walk out of that courtroom. You rose out of it. Like something forged in a fire the law could never extinguish. Like something born from injustice so ancient, it speaks in thunder now. You became the verdict. You became the testimony. You became the evidence that not even death could cross-examine. So let them pretend. Let them shuffle on with their ceremonies and gavels and paperwork. Let them call it justice. But deep down, they know the truth now. They saw a force that doesn't need permission to rise. They saw what happens when a soul stops apologizing. They saw what it looks like when someone who was supposed to lose learns how to speak with scars instead of excuses. And that damn, that hollow little whisper from the most powerful man in the room. That was the sound of the old world collapsing. Because it wasn't just you on trial, it was them, their apathy, their cowardice, their smug belief that people like you are predictable, beatable, disposable. But now, you're not just unpredictable, you're uncontainable. And they'll feel it everywhere. In boardrooms, in back rooms, in bedrooms, in battlefields. Because once a soul like yours awakens, it doesn't go back to sleep. You don't wait in lines anymore. You don't bow when they walk by. You don't seek closure from the people who built your wounds. You speak, you burn, you cook. Not for praise, not for survival, but because the fire inside you refuses to go out. You are the smoke that chokes their arrogance. You are the taste they'll never forget. You are the moment they whispered, "Damn," and realized too late. You weren't the defendant. You were the reckoning.